I'll never forget the night my world shattered. I was 15, lying in a hospital bed, my heart pounding as the doctor looked at me with a mixture of concern and disbelief. "James, your test result," he said. I blinked. What does it say?" He sighed. You shouldn't have this. According to your family's history, this is impossible." Impossible. That word echoed in my head. My hands shook as my vision blurred. Something was very, very wrong, and I was about to find out just how wrong. My heart raced, not from the storm outside, but from the storm inside me, the truth that had been kept for 15 years, the truth that explained why I was sickly, why the hospital bed had become my second home, a place I knew better than any classroom or playground. I grew up believing my lineage, the Wellingtons, were everything. Our family was glamorous, influential, and seemingly loving. My parents had built a world of wealth around me, a sprawling estate, private tutors who hovered over every lesson, the finest clothes that cost more than most earned in a year, luxurious trips abroad, and a family name that carried weight. Yet, despite all the luxury, my body had always betrayed me. I was fragile, constantly sick, a shadow of the strong, vibrant child everyone expected me to be. Every winter brought fever. Every summer, joint pain. My so-called family called it delicate, but I called it my curse. Still, they loved me, or at least they acted as if they did. My world was one of expectation and relentless pressure to be perfect, but every doctor's visit, every hospitalization left me wondering why I was so different. It was days after my 15th birthday when the truth began to surface. My doctor, persistent and kind, insisted on a genotype test to understand why I kept getting sick. It seemed out of place since both of my parents were AA. The results came back and my hands shook violently as I read them. SS, sickle cell anemia. The realization hit like a thunderclap. I couldn't be their child. I couldn't be a Wellington. My family could not have produced this genotype. When my mother came to the hospital the next morning, I handed her the result in silence. And then the truth began to unfold. It all began at my birth. Victoria, my mother, was the mastermind. Her mother-in-law, my grandmother, had demanded a male heir, suggesting that my mother's marriage would crumble if she failed. My mother had given birth to a girl. She sobbed in the delivery room, and the midwife that handled her delivery leaned in with a suggestion: switch babies. The woman in the neighboring room, married to a modest man, Mr. Thompson, had just given birth to a boy and was asleep, exhausted. She hadn't even held her child yet. My mother needed a son, and she had a plan. Lucy, the woman's help, had been by her side since labor began. She had witnessed the birth, counted fingers and toes, and quietly noted the sex of the child, a boy. My mother had promised her wealth, enough to save her only surviving sibling who was dying and needed millions for surgery. Lucy agreed, and so it was done. I was placed in Victoria's arms, while Emily, my mother's daughter, went to the other woman, oblivious to her true destiny, forced to be a Thompson. Victoria's plan was meticulous. Every lie, every manipulation, every bribe, it was hers. She created a life of wealth and privilege for me, her son, even as she erased the truth. Now that the cat was out of the bag, there was no turning back. Secrets, once whispered behind closed doors, had a way of clawing into the light, and mine, our family's, was too heavy, too dangerous to remain buried any longer. Whispers had already begun in the household. The servants exchanged uneasy glances, and even the silence in our mansion felt different, charged with questions no one dared to ask out loud. My illness, the hospital visits, the hushed conversations behind doors that were never fully closed, it was all unraveling. I watched my mother, Victoria, with new eyes. The way she carried herself, too composed, too deliberate. There was a crack in her mask now, a flicker of fear she tried to hide, but I saw it. She knew the truth was slipping beyond her control, and the truth was merciless. It demanded witnesses. It demanded everyone involved come face to face with what had been done 15 years ago. The Wellingtons could no longer keep the matter private. Too much was at stake, my health, my future, and now our name. So the decision was made. All parties had to know. The Thompsons, the other family whose lives had unknowingly been tied to ours, would be told. They raised Emily in modesty while I had lived in luxury, but the time had come for the balance to be shattered. The truth was a living thing now, and it would not rest until every soul it touched had been confronted. It took days to the Thompsons, gentle explanations, difficult truths, and repeated persuasion before they finally agreed to sit down with us. And so at last, the families convened. My family, the Wellingtons, wealthy and influential, and the Thompsons, modest family, sat together to deliberate. The atmosphere was heavy, almost suffocating. Emotions ran high. Anger, guilt, and sorrow mixed with concern for me, the boy who had been caught in the crossfire. You raised him, you gave him a good life, but he is our son by blood, my birth mother said softly. I know, my mother said firm but trembling, but he is fragile, sick. He needs medical care, care that only we can provide. I watched, heart pounding, as the adults argued over my life. Emily's family initially demanded justice, but my family argued with calm authority. The Wellington patriarch, my grandfather, finally spoke. His voice was commanding, carrying the weight of generations of wealth and authority. What has happened cannot be undone, but we will not allow this scandal to define us. The children, both of them, must be protected. Their futures must not be casualties of the past. Then a decision was made. Because of the love my mother and her husband had for me and the wealth and connections they possessed, they would arrange for me to go abroad for a bone marrow transplant, the best care possible, ensuring I would survive and thrive. Emily, now fully aware of her heritage, a Wellington by blood, would also be provided for, her life elevated to match the opportunities I had been given. Apologies were exchanged, though none could fully heal the wounds of lost years and broken trust. The air was thick with unspoken words, regrets about choices made long ago, secrets that should never have been kept. My birth father shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting between me and Emily. He tried to speak, but couldn't form words. Emily sat stiffly beside her parents, her face pale, eyes red from crying. My mother reached for her hand, but Emily recoiled slightly. The gesture stung. It reminded me that no matter how carefully this arrangement was wrapped in wealth and promises, wounds of blood and belonging could not be healed overnight. And I sat there, torn by ties I never chosen, my heart weak in my chest, yet beating harder than ever before. I looked at the man I had called father my entire life and saw only love and concern etched into his face. His eyes, steady and warm, held the same care he had always shown me, the same patience that had carried me through every childhood scrape and heartbreak. It was a strange, almost painful comfort. Here was a man who had loved me as his own, completely unaware of the tangled web that had brought me into his life. He had raised me, guided me, and protected me, not because of blood, but because of his heart. Finally, my birth mother spoke again, her words trembling but clear. Let this not be about what we lost, but about what we can still build. It was noble, it was hopeful, but the look in my birth father's eyes told me he wasn't convinced. Too much had been taken from them. Too much had been given to me. And as plans were drawn about my departure for surgery and Emily's integration into a new life, I realized the truth. The decisions being made weren't just about survival. They were about control, about who I belonged to, about whose name, in the end,
I would carry.
The meeting ended with handshakes that were more like truces, smiles that barely hid bitterness. The adults left feeling victorious, perhaps, but I knew better. This wasn't closure. This was the beginning. The transplant was a success. I recovered slowly, under the care of the best doctors in another country. I grew stronger than I had ever been. For the first time, I felt hope. My mother never left my side, guiding my care, watching over me like she had from birth, even if that birth had been a lie. My family remained attentive, ensuring that I lived a life of comfort, health, and love. Emily thrived too. With the truth revealed, her family ensured she received an education, opportunities, and a future she had been denied at birth. Despite the decades of deception, both of us had been given lives where we could flourish. I learned that love is complicated. My mother had orchestrated deceit, yes, but she had also loved me fiercely, enough to fight for my survival. Through illness, betrayal, and deceit, I had survived. Emily and I formed a bond unlike any other. Strangers in upbringing, birthday mates, united in resilience. We shared laughter, tears, and memories of a life that could have been different, but had been shaped by love, choice, and fate. Though our lives had been shaped by deceit, we had each been given a chance to flourish. I realized then that the truth, no matter how painful and devastating, can also heal. It can restore. It can set us free. It can give a second chance where there was none. The past, no matter how tangled, does not define the future. Wealth, illness, and secrets could never erase who we truly are. I am James. I am not my mother's biological son, but she raised me, loved me, and fought for me. I am the boy who survived. I have health, family, and a future. Emily is safe, cared for, and thriving. And though the past was steeped in lies, the present is ours to shape. Victoria's plan had been cruel, desperate, and selfish, but it also gave me the life I now embrace. Love, wealth, and opportunity, though born of deceit, allowed me to survive, to recover, and to grow. The life I was never meant to have became the life I chose to live.
What would you do if you discovered that your entire life had been built on a lie? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your take. If this story gripped you, don't forget to hit the like button. Subscribe for more captivating real-life stories, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Until next time, remember, some secrets are too heavy to carry forever.